Welcome to the Lupus Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Shant'e, and I'm here to inspire and empower lupus warriors just like you. So grab your favorite drink and a notebook because you'll want to take some notes. Whether you're navigating the challenges of lupus or balancing health, faith, personal development, and business, together we dive into real stories, expert tips, and loopy gems to help you stay strong in both your journey and your hustle. So let's create the life we deserve while staying true to who we are. Ready to level up? Come on, let's go. Hey y'all, hey! Welcome back to another episode of Lupus Speaks, where we keep it chronically real about lupus and everything in between. It's your girl, Shant'e, and today we're diving into a conversation that's all about owning your healthcare journey and stepping into your power as a patient. My guest, Shamekka Marty, is not only a lupus warrior, but also a fierce advocate for patient rights, data privacy, and healthcare reform. From being a caregiver for her mother to receiving her own lupus diagnosis, Shamekka has seen it all. And now she's using her voice to make sure we all have the tools and knowledge to fight for better healthcare. So listen, when Shamekka said, "I'm going to own it," she meant every word. This episode is packed with gems on patient advocacy, mental health, and how to navigate a system that isn't always built for us. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Shamekka.
Hello.
Let's start out by learning more about your personal journey. Can you briefly share about your journey and how it shaped your life?
My journey started when I was just a little girl. It was not with me personally. My mother had lupus. My grandmother had severe rheumatoid arthritis. Honestly, I mean, lupus wasn't a thing. She was born in 1939. She could have very well had lupus as well. But her case was so severe that she was bedridden. Her hands were like this. Her legs were frozen in place. And so my mom started to take care of her. I started to take care of my mother. In turn, she was a single mother. It was just my brother. I have another brother. I'm actually one of six, but that's the only brother that lived with me. Just taking care of her and having to grow up really, really fast and learning in the trenches. My mom really didn't explain anything. It was just like, you need to be here to help me do. And she wasn't one of those people that were in touch with their emotions. So I would come home and like find her on the floor. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? I would have not gone into school today, and it was just, I was in training, combat training, like just all the time. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. The nurses aren't coming. And dialysis techs, my mom had in-home dialysis. Instead of going to a dialysis center, she actually was fortunate enough to have it in the house. So I was able to talk to the dialysis techs, any of the home health aides that came to visit for my grandmother. And my mom needed help whenever she had to go to a doctor's office. So I learned how to drive at 14. So I'd go to school, take the car. I had a beeper. Yes, I'm that old. And get a text, you need to come home or whatever. That was my life then. And she passed away at age 44. And I was 21 at the time. And so it was a big crash course, and I just wanted to advocate in her name. And that's what it started out at. And I figured because of rheumatological diseases in my family, I have a great aunt that has MS as well, that I may have it myself. So I kept asking the doctor, hey, can you test me? Can you test me? Can you test me? Can you test me? And they're just like, why are you trying to have it come on to you? And I'm like, I'm trying to be proactive because I know what to do. I know what things to ask. I was in the doctor's office with my mom all the time. I was researching things because there was no internet really then. And it became, okay, well, I didn't get it. And I thought I was out of the woods because most people think that you get lupus at an early age. And it wasn't until I turned 30 that it showed up. And I kept telling them, I woke up and I feel like I have the flu. My glands are swollen. My back hurts. My hands are like this. And they were like, no, you're having back spasms. No, you have allergies. And I was like, how do I get allergies at 30 out of nowhere? And so they finally did the test again. I was like, can you please test me again? They're like, we already tested you. And I'm like, no, I think it's showing. I think it's going to show up now. And it did. And then it just became, all right, you know exactly what to do. You're in one of those situations where people actually learn from an issue and you're going to be able to help people to fight. I didn't take it as a bad thing. was probably upset for 5 seconds. I called my husband as I was in the car because I got the test results then. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to own it. I'm going to, sorry to say that, I was going to make it my bitch. And that's, well.
I was going to ask you, and let me know if this is too personal, but how did it really affect you, like, growing up in that type of environment? Like, did it make you more determined, or like what? How was it like for you that young, just having to navigate all those type of energies, emotions? Do you think that brought on some of the stress that you have developed, contributing to you having lupus?
To be honest with you, it's a great question. No one's really asked me that, and the answer is I was mad. I was very mad, and it was because I'm like, Mom, you took on all this responsibility, and you're literally making your life my life. And I know that she took it on because I was her mother, and I was like, okay, this is my mother, but you didn't have to do this as young as I did. I was 10, babies sitting, adults sitting my grandmother. Just going through sitting with the doctors, and I was, taught, you're seen, not heard. And so I couldn't offer, like, when I wanted to come out of my skin when these doctors were telling her these things, and I could feel that it was wrong. And I dug myself into my studies. I was a stellar student. I had AP classes. I graduated high school early. So I just dug myself into that. My social life, I was always kind of ashamed. Like, I would tell my mom, pick me up late. If it was done at 8:00, I would tell her, like, pick me up at 8:10 so everybody would be gone, because I didn't want them to see how my mom was when she was down. If I knew that she was, and I hated that I did that. Now that I realize, what, I was a soldier, I was in training, and now and now I know exactly what to do, but I took it for granted, as a child does, and thinking that it was almost a burden. I even lashed out and said, why did you do this to me? And I didn't know any better, and I wish I could have taken it back. But that is, for me, the ability to be able to see things from a child's point of view, because most of us are parents. Most of us, I know some of us cannot, but as you're an adult and or with your partner, you're just like feeling where you already are feeling in your mind at least once that you're a burden. And didn't even think about that at that time. I still, people say, you were a kid. And I'm like, no, I should have never said that. I hated that I said that. I really do. And it was because she died so young, and I didn't get a chance to tell her, because I didn't get a chance to become an adult, really, that I'm sorry, that I wish I would have been, I was understanding that whole time, and it was just like breaking me.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have a lot of empathy in that way, because I feel like you might not grew up with a parent with a chronic illness, but if you ever dealt with them having some other type of struggle where you had to be the responsible child, it always leaves like such a burden thing on you. So, I mean, I'm very conscious of that, even me, because my daughter is 10. And so just navigating that and making sure I'm not putting too much on her, but just showing up as an authentic self. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to always be strong. And then sometimes you will have to be strong, and mostly just, having more a sense of self for her. Like, you don't have to be independent of yourself. Not having to lean on me all the time.
Well, I have 3 kids, and even though I had a hard childhood, I decided to make it harder and had a kid at 16. So there's that. I'm a Capricorn. I just wanted to have a challenge, I guess. But the way that I have raised my kids, I've tried to shelter them as much as possible. But I've also, in the same sense, had them be responsible and delegate. So they know when I'm down, all 3 of them can cook, all 3 of them can clean, all 3 of them can do everything. When I had my kidney transplant, they all jumped in. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't give them the kind of horror scenes that I would come home to, where blood is everywhere, or all the EMTs or cops at my house because there's a medical emergency. Those type of things are traumatizing. And I just wish that, I'm vocal with them. I don't try to put the burden on them. And it's probably more so because I have a husband. My mom was divorced, to shelter them from as much as possible, but still educate them, because I want them to be there at the walks. I want to educate them. So if somebody says they've all encountered someone that has an autoimmune disease and they know what to look for, and those people feel comfortable talking to my kids, So at least I feel okay that I didn't completely shelter them. Now, if I ask them to rattle off every single disease I have, all they say is lupus. And I'm like, well, mommy has this. And they're like, all right, I don't expect you to know everything. As long as you know that I have something, I'm good with that.
Yeah. So when you were diagnosed, how many years did it take you to start advocating? Like, were you already doing that prior to your diagnosis?
I was advocating in my mother's name prior to my diagnosis, but it took, when you think about it, the average is 5 to 7 years. And when I look at my medical history back, the doctors and I could have just put it on a chart and see like progressively, this is happening, this is happening. There were so many one-offs and it was too much time in between for them to put it together. So one time I broke out in hives for no reason all over my body. So they thought I had shingles. And I was like, well, no, don't you get that if you didn't have chickenpox? And I said, I had chickenpox as a kid. And they were like, no, we'll take these steroids. And, it was gone. Then I just started having issues with my breathing. I always had asthma, but it was just getting worse and worse. Then for some reason, I couldn't taste my tongue. The feeling in my tongue went out for a month. And I'm like, okay, that's not fun. Then it was just thing after thing after thing until when I said, there's something going on, all of a sudden it just started to, every day was something like my body's going haywire. I think that with a lot of the things the listeners may not know is I do speaking engagements at conferences. And one of the topics that I talk about is AI in healthcare. And I think that AI will help revolutionize and decrease the amount of years that it takes for a diagnosis, because we can now have more precision medicine in putting in someone's chart and saying, the patient had this, and this. Think about when a doctor comes in, they have 15 minutes with you. They look at your chart 5 minutes before. You don't expect for them to know every single one. They see at least 100 patients a week, and I'm probably lowballing it. I can't expect them, if they're not taking the time out, or this is what they do 24/7 minus having a family, to actually look at charts to help decrease the amount of time that we have to struggle. And then it's also on ourselves. We need to do a little bit of work. So it was just, I wish now that I know, and now I know what to tell people, like keep a diary of what you eat, your pain, everything, so that you can help the doctors help you. And we rely on them so much. So it was a learning experience. And so now I try to make sure everything that I learn, I'm telling other people so that they don't have to go through that, because literally the statistics say 5 to 7 years. And if we can just make that a little bit smaller, it'll help things get progressively towards less suffering.
Yeah, that was my next question. It was going to be, what does your advocacy look like? What's some of the things that you do that we don't know that will actually help benefit us in the future when it comes to advocating for ourselves?
Advocating for yourselves right now means to me that I go to these conferences as a patient advocate. And what that means, there's different versions of patient advocates. I'm all of the versions, but when I go to a conference, I speak for you. I want to know on my social media all the time that I'm plugging things is please contact me and let me know what you're encountering, because the normal person doesn't have the opportunity or the funds to show up at these conferences to the decision makers, to the government, and take the time off to speak to them. I go to patient-led symposiums where one in particular was the National Kidney Foundation. I was testifying on the drugs that are currently out there that are not really suitable. Do they know what we go through when we take these drugs? There are times where you can apply and the regular person doesn't know that you can apply to become a person to speak in front of these people and let them know, when I take this drug, you're thinking that you're solving my issues. Well, guess what? You're solving one issue, and with that issue, you're giving me 10 other things that I have to deal with. And I have to weigh out properly, do I really, really want to do this in order to make this go away? Because you do not give us a drug that makes everything go away. You basically play a game of whack-a-mole with us. And so I let them know exactly what's going on. I advocate for just patient advocacy, health as a whole. It's not just lupus. I talk about interoperability. And when I say the word interoperability, I'm just going to ask you, do you know what that means? Exactly. We use it every time we go to the doctor. And why is that important? Because if you're a person that has multiple illnesses, if you've ever encountered, unless you live in California, we have a health system called Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser is a one-stop shop. All of your doctors are in this one building, and you can only go to Kaiser. You cannot go to any Blue Cross Blue Shield or Cigna or Aetna doctors. You have to go to Kaiser. So you're very limited. When you're not a part of that, let's just say you go to one hospital and then you go to another hospital. You have two different doctors. If you want to have the best specialist, you don't just stay within one hospital system. I'm not sure where you live, but here in California, there is the Stanford, and then sometimes I go to Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is in Arizona. If they do not have Epic, which you don't know unless you ask the doctor or nurse to turn the computer around to see, all you know is I have my chart or my health. Well, first of all, those are two different words, which means they're two different hospital systems, which also means they probably don't talk to each other. If you've ever encountered where you go to a doctor's office and they say, well, you know, you need to run these tests, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wait, I've already done that. Well, I can't see it. And then you have to pull it up on your phone. Now you pull it up before electronic health records have been a thing for the past 10 years, we would have to either carry around a book of all of our medical records, or now I have 10 different apps because I have so many doctors that I see. So many, I have a cardiologist, I have an endocrinologist, I have a rheumatologist, but I want them to be able to see that. That also limits the ability for them to diagnose us if they can't see the whole picture. And people aren't thinking about the whole picture in terms of your dental health actually affects their health. It's connected to your body. I don't know why we have to separate eye and dental and then health. My head is connected to my body. So when you want to have a holistic view and have real eyes, determination, I speak about that because it is a rule in the government that it's information blocking. The systems can't talk to each other. So we're working on rules for that. I also work with the New York Civil Liberties Union on their board. I'm on 3 different government boards that help with interoperability, the ability for patient exchange, electronic health records, and health data utilities. These are things all in the background that you utilize, but you don't know the terms to. It's just like when you use your phone. You use your phone, you open it up. As long as you can connect to the internet, as long as you can make a phone call, you don't care how it works in the background. Well, that stuff that works in the background, other people have to do. So that's basically what I do, is all the IT portion, because my normal job is cybersecurity. So I figured, why not just try to incorporate the two and talk about that? I talk about AI. I talk about, data privacy. A lot of the things that people don't realize is they're more focused on our data privacy when it comes to credit cards or financial. Well, that same information, your social security number, is tied to every single health system. And there have been so many breaches that we don't realize. And when we sign up for these electronic health records, we don't know that our stuff is being sold to a third-party source. I mean, most of us probably think that it is, and we don't think anything of it. But that is the reason why we have so much mistrust with the government. And so that's also something that I advocate for, is making sure that patients are informed of where their information is circulating to allow it. Like, okay, I want you to use this for scientific purposes. It's your body, it's your data. You should have a say on how it's being utilized. And so I speak about that and letting people know, like, these vulnerabilities that are in our data privacy are too much, and we should not do that. And people should be accountable for it.
You're right. We do not think about all that.
Yeah. Nobody thinks about that. But I'm like, as soon as you get oh my God, my credit card breached. And I'm like, honey, do you know how many times your health information is compromised?
No, I haven't.
All the time.
Idea. Never would have even thought. That is interesting to know. Now I know.
When you sign up for a doctor, you're just like, okay, hurry up. Let me just see my record. But you don't look at, like, it asks you to opt out, things of that nature. We're just quick to click everything. What about the cookies? No, you want to make sure your stuff is secure, because eventually, you're thinking, like, I always say that, whoever wants to be me, but every time I go into the hospital, they verify, say your name, date of birth, and like I have to say it 10 times. And I said, look, I don't want to pretend to be somebody else. I don't want these problems, but honestly, the people over in some foreign country do, because that goes to your banking information or a new identity for them, because they could be a criminal.
Well, thank you for that information, because I know that right there was a lot just to understand the language of that wow. But it's not as simple as you think it is when you just online and, giving them your medical information.
everything online is subject to someone being able to obtain.
Yep. Now I got a new fear.
I hate to put it that way. I mean, honestly, I've encountered so many things just being in the IT world. I've encountered a guy that, what makes me think about every time when we're going out and we're like, oh, who could take our picture? You're with your girls or you're with your family and you're like, okay, here, take my phone. And I met a man that it was at a cybersecurity conference it was about data vulnerabilities, and he was an augmented human. What does that mean? That means he has a whole CPU implanted in his skin. And then it's almost like the mark of the beast. He has a thing that will read everything. Anytime you touch something or go within 50 feet of him, he can obtain all your data off of your phone, all of your data off your credit cards. And he has 6 different microchips implanted, but he just got a CPU implanted so that he can just go like this. And he told me that there's 88,000 people on the planet because he's part of a group. It's called ethical hacking. And I'm like, I don't know if there's anything ethical about it. Why do we even think about it? But
the ethical and then hack, it don't even.
Well, because regular hackers are out there for bad. We call them threat actors. But I don't need to give you a crash course in cybersecurity, but just to be careful, thinking about like the next time you give your phone to someone to take a picture, it should be somebody because they could be one of those people that have it on there. Not to increase any other fear, but it's just, we just walk around and we're so careless until it happens to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that because that's something that I feel like everybody needs to know whether you have lupus or not.
They should, but sometimes, it gives them a whole bunch of fear. And I'm like, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to make sure you're aware and you have the facts. It's just like health information. I'm trying to make sure you're aware. The next time your doctor just hands you a drug, most people are like, oh, okay. Where, because I'm a patient advocate, I'm like, I'm going to hold off on this. I'm going to do some research. I look at the reviews on this medication. I want to know from the experts, the other people that are taking it. I don't want to know from my doctor because he'll say like, oh, you may have this, and it'll be like one of those commercials. You may have anal leakage and you're dancing and you're happy. And I'm like, no, I want to see the reviews on it. I always do, making sure it's like Yelp. We can look up for a restaurant because we want to know the ratings are good. How many times do we do that for medication? How many times do we do that for doctors? We don't. And that's where I try to educate people every time that I speak, and whether it be a podcast. And I also tell the makers the same thing. And I'm like, you got to start making stuff that actually gives us more of a cure and less of a headache.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you advocating because that right there, advocacy in general is a big role. And I was going to ask you, like, do you feel like it's a heavy weight to carry, or is it really easy for you to just kind of do all the stuff that we on the back end and we just have no idea about?
I like that I am in the know. Something that I've always wanted to do, but I was never healthy enough to do. When I started advocating in my mother's name, I was good. And then all of a sudden I became sick and I was like, you know what? Number one, I have to still be a mom. I have to be a mom, I have to be here. I want to devote my time to being a good mom. And so my last child is going to be graduating high school this year. And my other kids, so they're 27, 24, and 17. And so I waited until they were of age and that I could leave. And it's been my dream. I've always wanted to do public speaking. I took public speaking in college and to get over my fear. And it was just little things that I could do, little foundation stuff, little Rotary clubs. So I was getting my practice. And that's what a lot of people don't know. It's like I've been speaking actually for 15 years, but full force. Not now I have to say, because, we're just a couple of days into 2025. I took it full force in 2023. And so I like that I'm able to do it because I still encounter at a lot of these lupus foundations that people are still not comfortable with sharing their story. And then when they do, they have so much emotion because they bottled it up inside. And that's where people are like, you need to let it out, because not only for your sanity, but for your health. And I feel as though it is a lot of stress that contributes to our flares. So I don't mind. I'm like, just tell me. I don't care. I will stand up in front of someone. I am 5'2", but when I come in that room, I'm 6'5", and I will get them to listen. I don't mind that. I feel honored to be able to.
So have you ever been through any therapy?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been through the way that I look does not represent everything that I've been through. Like being the oldest is a tough job. I'm still the oldest of 6, but like I said, my brother lived with me, but my siblings all lived in the same town. We all, there's an age gap, but I took care of not only them. I was looked at my family as one of the strongest ones, where my uncles and aunts treat me like an equal. They don't treat me like a niece. I'm the one that does the funeral arrangements, not that I want to. I've been through so many death kind of situations, especially with health. And yeah, I do. On occasion, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to go crazy, because God bless my husband, but he's never been through any of that. So he really can't relate. He'll just sit there and listen. And I'm like, okay, I need something back. Otherwise, I'll just talk to my dog. I've been able to speak to several whenever I really need to have an outlet. I don't have a consistent one. It'll just be like, all right, I need to pay for some therapy and get this out, because there's so many things that I've experienced. I've had a stroke. I had a mini stroke in 2013. I was in the hospital for several times. My blood pressure has gone up to 288 over 110, which most people don't even know it goes that high. I didn't even know it was that high. And just the pressures of life. And I think that a lot of people are, especially in the Black community, Black and brown communities, let me just get that straight, or minorities, because I'm friends with a lot of Asians. They don't talk to people. They're not apt to, okay, let me just talk to someone. Everybody just carries it. And that's why the statistics show that we have it the most. And so, yeah, I have to do that. And I advocate for other people to do the same.
Yeah, because I know that how willing you and open you are with sharing your story. I feel like it takes time to get to that space, especially if you had help working through those emotions. So that's why I asked. So what advice would you give to others living with lupus who might feel overwhelmed by their journey?
I just now came up with this, the last podcast that I was on, and it was in December. There was a woman that asked me that, because she's just like, I'm more my former self. And probably because of what I went through, I don't feel as though it's like that. I feel more energetic, even though I can't run track anymore. But hey, if I'm not running for money, I don't really want to run anyway. It's just, remember, it's not going to be a bad life. It's a bad day. Everybody's going to have a bad day. At least you know why you're having a bad day. At least you know why something is happening to you. There's too many people that just often, in the world that we live in America, where they're just going out and having fun. Let's just say the New Year's Eve festivities in New Orleans, no one was thinking that they were going to die that day.
Yeah.
But you know what you're up against. And at least being aware, to me, is better than being unaware. Remember that we are butterflies. The symbol of lupus is wolves and butterflies. But no one remembers that a butterfly doesn't just come out as a butterfly. It's a caterpillar. You're going through the struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's transformation. We have to transform. We have to go through this in order to become a beautiful butterfly. And just remember, at the end of the day, you're going to spread your wings and fly, and you are going to excel. And you take this pain and you make it your power.
Well said. Well said. I love that.
I don't know, maybe I might have said that maybe once or twice.
No, but it was well said. I loved it. So is there any specific resources or communities or tools that have been instrumental for you that you think that would help the community that you recommend?
Just to let people know, there are so many support groups. If you don't feel comfortable with just talking with, getting your head around, I have to speak to a therapist. There's plenty of support groups that are out there. Lupus Foundation of America has a lot of resources. If you're looking for resources outside of, maybe you just want to tell your story, you can also do that there. You can just write it in. There's little ways that you can tell your story. So there's also LADA, and that's LADA. They give you resources on everything. When I say everything, I mean, you want to know about disability. You want to know about employment law. You want to know about everything, everyday things that apply to lupus. Go on LADA, and that's Lupus Allied Diseases and Association. Then there is, if you are Asian descent, a lot of Asians don't know, because actually I just got my nails done. I'm very meticulous about my nails. My nail tech, she doesn't speak English that well, but she has lupus. And she was trying to communicate to me, and I told her, look, there is Lantern. Lantern is Lupus Asian Network. Actually, there's something out there for everyone. There's also one that is in Spanish, and that can be found on Lupus Foundation of America's website. If you're interested in clinical trials, go on Lupus Research Alliance. And everywhere there is a local lupus chapter so that you can be connected with other people. I think that, we always want to associate, even when we're looking at TV, like I want someone that looks like me, or nobody knows that. I always get that is nobody understands. And I'm like, I actually do. I've probably been through so many different things that except for having like a colostomy bag, I cannot relate with that, but I can relate to everything, especially the mental aspect, the relationship aspect. There's a lot of people that feel as though that they will never have a nice relationship because they have this. There are people out there. The great thing and the bad thing, but the great thing about social media is I wish it would have been out when my mother was alive because she literally felt alone. And that's valid because in the 90s, nobody knew what that was. And to this day, if you give me 5 people and I ask them, do you know what lupus is? I'd probably get maybe one half answer out of those 5 people. So just looking up your local resources, utilize the internet for good. A lot of people stay away from it because like, I don't want to deal with it, the drama, the fakeness, whatever. There are some good things on it. Find your local support group. Sign up for a walk. Just be amongst your people.
Right. So are there any products or things that you're working on that you would like to highlight or that you would like to promote?
I'm always working on a project. But see, my focus is scattered everywhere. Will be May, at least for the Lupus listeners. For May, I'm always busy. If you are interested in making a difference and talking to your local office, I encourage you to be out there May at Advocacy Day. It will be available, I think it's May 4th and 5th this year. And what that is all Lupus warriors. It's a conference for a couple days, and you get to be in front of the Lupus Foundation of America, and they will sign you up to speak to your local representative. So I represented last year the state of California, and I got to go to every single representative for the state of California and tell them my story, why they should give funds towards lupus research, towards lupus resources for us. And that felt moving. I was like, oh my God, I'm at, Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
It felt great. So I'm going to be speaking a lot. I'm actually going to be speaking at NYU. I partnered with the National Minority Health Association. A lot of people don't even know, we have a National Minority Health Association under Health and Human Services. Yes, we do. And I'm an ambassador for it. And so they're going to do this big campaign. I'm still waiting to hear about what is in store for me, but be on the lookout. In May, you'll see my mug all over doing all the things. And actually, I just yesterday signed a contract with a company. I can't say the name of the company yet, but for genetic testing. They have been trying to get ahead of genetic testing. I have a daughter and I want this cycle to stop.
Right.
This lupus patients aren't thinking, we're thinking about ourselves because you know what, we're inundating with our story, with our medical journey. I'm trying to figure out this whole genetic testing and see what possibilities are there so that we can go ahead and start testing other people. Because if you've noticed, there's a lot of people that have it within their families. They'd like to say it's not hereditary, but I'm like, for me, it is.
They do say that. I don't know why.
I know a lot of people that have like an aunt, a brother, a sister, and it'll be like
moms and daughters.
Yes. And I don't have it. Try so hard. I'm partnering with this pharmaceutical company to promote genetic testing. And yeah, that's one of the few things. I'm doing a whole bunch of conferences. I'm coordinating. Oh, I can actually say that. So NBA All-Star Weekend is here in the Bay. I live in San Francisco, and it's coming up next month. And so I am partnering with my other fellow advocate. She is a diabetes advocate, and we are holding a health conference and 3-on-3 basketball tournament with the theme of, the All-Star basketball game. And we're going to have some special guests, some current and past NBA players and WNBA players. And the LFA has agreed to partner with us, as well as the Diabetes Clinic of UCSF, as well as another Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. So look for that. I'm trying to make sure that goes national. You may see some commercials about it. We will know more by the end of the week, but look for that because that's my baby. I'm actually the co-host on that. I'm not partnering with anybody else. But I hope that this will be successful. My fingers crossed that I get Isabella Harrison. It's a soft yes right now. She is a WNBA player that a lot of people are not aware. She has lupus. So very, very, very important if she did.
Yeah, well, that would be cool. I'm excited for you. So how can all of my listeners find you if they haven't already? Because you're everywhere.
It's so funny. When I went last year to the Advocacy Day, and I never felt so much like a celebrity. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm not really a celebrity at all. But when it comes to the lupus community, if you don't know my name or you're not following me, everybody kept saying, we're taking pictures. And I was like, okay, let me go over here. And like, oh, you do? I'm like, oh, okay. And then they kept saying it. My husband was there. He was my cameraman. And he was like, everybody follows you, honey. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, you just doing your thing. You're just doing
This
it.
little girl from Jersey that happens to live in the Bay Area, but
Yeah. So, well, they can find you on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook.
Everything is consistent at Pretty Sick Lupus Chick for Facebook, for Instagram, for TikTok. I'm not on TikTok too much. And then I have my own website. It's shamekkamarty.com. So if you see my name down there, it's spelled exactly like that. There's a little conflict. Sometimes you'll see my name spelled with an I versus
it does that.
Yes, it's technically right. My mother had this weird idea that she would mess up my name and my brother's name. So we have two different spellings of our names, and his is spelled with an A and an O, and mine is an E and an I. Why she did that, I don't know, because she did it on our birth certificate one way and our social security card on another way. So technically, they're not wrong, but I run with the E. But on my license, it's the I. So, but I made my website what I like to spell it is Shamekka Marty.
That's so funny because my sister's name is Shamekka too, but hers is spelled Shamekkia. Like Shamekka.
There's been so many different variations. I actually went to school with another girl. Her name was Shamekka as well, and our names were actually the same, first and last name, except for she had one K. And one day she got in trouble, and my mom told me when I got home from school, she's like, I almost wanted to whip your butt. I was like, what are you talking about, Mom? She's like, I got a call from the school. And I realized it wasn't you because I said, put her on the phone. And she was like, this is not my daughter. This doesn't sound like my daughter.
I almost got you messed
yes.
up.
And then I was like, Mom, I wouldn't do anything stupid in school.
Oh,
she's like, that's why I was so surprised. Like, I'm going to have to whip this child.
Dang. Shamekka, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your unwavering commitment to the community. I appreciate everything that you shared with us today. The podcast exists to support, uplift, and lupus warriors like you. So make sure to check out the resources and connect with Shamekka to learn more about her advocacy work. Don't forget to tune in to next week for another Empire episode of Lupus Speaks. And until next time, you guys, peace and be intentional. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode of the Lupus Speaks podcast. I hope you found some inspiration, encouragement, and a few loopy gems to carry with you on your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other lupus warriors who might need to hear this. And remember, you don't have to walk this path alone. We're building an incredible community here, so follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Lupus Speaks, or check out lupusspeaks.org for more ways to connect and get involved. And until next time, peace and be intentional.